Good morning students. Today we are going to discuss about the leftover part of our regulation of gene expression. Yesterday we were talking about regulation, how regulation of gene expression takes place in prokaryotes. So today we are going to discuss about regulation of gene expression in eukaryotes. In eukaryotes. See, we talked about this thing earlier also, that if we compare prokaryotes and eukaryotes, prokaryotes are only single celled organisms and eukaryotes are multicellular organisms, and also prokaryotes are simple one while eukaryotes are complex one. So it is easy to understand the process of regulation in case of prokaryotes because there the operon model is functioning, and difficult to understand the process of gene regulation in eukaryotes. In eukaryotes, the process of gene regulation takes place as multiple steps. We saw that this is a highly complex process, how DNA is translated into the information present in DNA is translated into proteins. When all these processes happening in a sequential manner, there are lots of steps at which the regulation process is done. So let's talk about the steps. First thing, or we are going to differentiate also between the prokaryotic DNA as well as eukaryotic DNA. The first thing about this eukaryotic regulation is, in prokaryotic regulation we said that more than one structural gene is having one single promoter. But what happens in eukaryotes? In eukaryotes, one gene is having its own promoter. So the first thing about eukaryotic regulation is one or you can say one structural gene is having its own promoter. So each gene is controlled by its own promoter. That was not in the case of prokaryotes. Another thing, see, eukaryotes are complex. So metabolic processes that are taking place in eukaryotes, these metabolic processes are involving different enzymes, means more than one enzyme will be involved and more than one gene will be responsible for these enzymes. So the pathway, or you can say any of the metabolic pathway that is including more than one genes, then these genes are not located in a sequential manner. In prokaryotes, what we saw, that a operon model is having all the structural genes that are involved in a metabolic pathway, like we saw in lac operon, lac Z, lac Y, lac A, all are involved in the metabolism of lactose, so they are present in one single segment of DNA. This is not the case in eukaryotes. The genes that are involved in single metabolic pathway, they may be present distantly or they are distantly located in one single chromosome, or they can be present on another different chromosomes. So genes involved in one single metabolic pathway, genes involved here means the genes that are coding for enzymes. Metabolic pathway may be distantly located on one chromosome or present on different chromosomes. Both cases can be there. Now another thing about the eukaryotes is, we know that the mRNA, the transcript that is formed, this transcript is going to have both the coding regions as well as non-coding regions, means the exons and the introns. So splicing will be done, the non-coding regions, introns will be removed out and the exons will be joint. So regulation also takes place at the level of transcript. So it is containing both coding and non-coding sequences. From which these non-coding sequences will be removed out and the exons or coding sequences will be joined to form a fully functional transcript. So RNA, at the level of RNA splicing also regulation is done. Another regulation is done when this transcript is going to come out of the nucleus, because we know transcription is taking place inside the nucleus, but the process of translation will take place inside the cytoplasm. So this transcript has to move out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm. So at this level also regulation is done. So this transcript, the primary transcript, or you can say now it is a fully functional mRNA, will move out from the nucleus into the cytoplasm. Another thing, these eukaryotes have some sensor genes. What these sensor genes are going to do? These sensor genes are going to sense change in the environment, the intracellular environment. Inside the cell, a chemical is there, substrate is there, change in anything is sensed by these sensor genes. So these sensor genes are helping in the process of regulation. So there are some sensor genes, and these sensor genes are going to sense the change in intracellular environment. So these sensor genes are going to convey the information to the structural genes according to the change that is coming inside the cell. Another type of genes that are present in eukaryotes, these are integrator genes. Other than sensor genes, some integrator genes are present. What these integrator genes are doing? These integrator genes are controlling all the genes that are involved in a metabolic pathway. I already told you that whether these genes are present on a single chromosome, they are located distantly, or they might be present on another different chromosomes. So this integrator gene is going to control all the genes that are involved in one metabolic pathway. Involved in a single metabolic pathway. So this is how regulation of gene expression occurs in eukaryotes, and it is more complex as compared to prokaryotes. Now if we talk about the advantage of these regulations, what is the advantage of gene regulation? Then we are basically finding three advantages of gene regulation. The first advantage of gene regulation is that whenever a enzyme, or you can say a protein, is not required, then it is not secreted, or you can say translation is not taking place. Now if this process is not taking place, then the cell is going to, or the organism is going to conserve ATP, that means energy will be conserved and raw materials will be conserved. So they are basically not leading to expenditure, unnecessary expenditure of energy and raw materials is not done. So there is preservation of energy and raw material by shutting off the gene whenever not required. And another thing is, this gene regulation is leading to growth and differentiation, because at different stages of life different genes are expressed, some are shut down, some are expressing, and it is leading to metamorphosis. So another advantage is it is leading to growth and differentiation. That is metamorphosis. Because the organisms are going to show different regions. Now, this gene regulation is also helping a cell to adapt itself according to the environmental changes, because as the environment is going to change, again the gene expression in the cell is going to change. The cell is going to adapt itself according to environment mental changes. Now, we were talking about that some genes are shut down and some genes are switched on whenever required. There are some type of genes that are present in a cell that continuously being expressed, or you can say there is continuous secretion of those type of proteins or enzymes. These are known as housekeeping genes. Housekeeping genes means these genes are not shut down, they continuously express themselves because they are required by the cell all the time, and this continuous expression is leading to the formation of their proteins and enzymes continuously inside the cell. So this was all about regulation of gene expression. Now we are moving forward to with a very important topic, that is Human Genome Project. So we are starting another topic of this chapter, that is Human Genome Project. The name is showing that this project is all about humans. Genome means genetic material of the human. If we talk about all the human beings that are existing on earth, each and every human being is having its own identity. We can easily differentiate between the two individuals. They are having different height, different color, different facial features are there. This is all because they are having their own genetic material. So there is difference in the genetic material that is coming, and because of that difference in the genetic material, they are having their individual identity. And if we go in detail and talk about the difference at the molecular level, what difference is present between the individuals at the molecular level, then the difference is going to come into the nucleotides present in DNA. We know that 4 nucleotides are present, that is again A, T, G, C is there, only 4 are there, but the arrangement is different. They are, we know on DNA they are arranged in a sequential manner. So the repetition or the arrangement is different, and that is going to be different in each and every organism, and this is giving a particular identity to a individual. Now, knowing all these things, the scientists, they wanted to know the sequence of human genome, and because of this curiosity, they led to a new branch, that was genomics. This genomics was dealing with the genome. So the Human Genome Project, that was started to know about the complete nucleotide sequence of human DNA, and for this they started the project in the year of 1990. So the human project, genome project started in 1990 and it was started by US Department of Energy and National Institute of Health. So we need to remember that human genome project started in 1990 by the US Department of Energy and National Institute of Health. Later on, after some time, this project was joined by Wellcome Trust of US, and in 1993 many countries also joined this project like Japan, France, China. So these and many more countries, they also joined this project. Now if we talk about the completion of this project, it was started in 1990 but this project got completed in the year of 2013. Most of the sequencing process, however some part of the genome was left in the year of 2003 also, but we are saying that this project was also almost completed in the year of 2003. That means it took almost 13 years to sequence human genome. So when the scientists, they started sequencing human genome, then they were having some of the assumptions. Okay, this much base pairs will be present, this will be the cost for the sequencing process, this much time will be taken for the process of sequence. So they were having some of the assumptions in their mind and they started this project with these assumptions, and later on when the sequencing process was done, then they find out the differences, what was the actual situation that came and what were their assumptions that were earlier before the sequencing process. So what they were thinking before starting the sequencing, they were thinking that human genome is having 3 billion base pairs. So these were the assumptions that are made by the scientists, that 3 into 10 raised to power 9 base pairs, 3 billion base pairs are present in human genome, and if we are having a cost of $3 for one base pair, when sequencing process will be done, then one sequencing of one base pair is going to cost ₹3. Then the sequencing of this much base pair will be, the cost for sequencing of these base pairs is leading to almost $9 million. So that was a mega project, that was very costly, and the sequencing these base pairs, if we are going to arrange these base pairs in a book, then there is requirement of almost 3,300 books. These 3,300 books should have, each book should have 1,000 pages, and on one page there should be 1,000 letters. So this much requirement should be there for the storage of the information that we are going to get after human genome sequencing. So it is a very bulky material. This thing, to interpret, or you can say to store the data, to manipulate it, to analyze the data, that give rise to a new branch, that is bioinformatics. And this branch of science, that is bioinformatics, it is dealing with the manipulation and analysis of data. that is present in the databases. Lists of data present in databases. So this bioinformatics also came into existence during the process of or during this time period of Human Genome Project, so that all the data can be easily stored in a computerized form, and later on this data can be used for the purpose of analysis also. So these were the things that are coming in Human Genome Project. Now what were the goals of this Human Genome Project? So the first goal of Human Genome Project was that the scientists were thinking that there were 3 billion base pairs present in Human Genome Project. So they want to know the sequence of all the 3 billion base pairs. So the first goal was to know the sequence of 3 billion base pairs present in complete human genome. Now the second goal was they want to identify and determine the function of all the genes that are present in the human genome. Say they want to know which gene is present and what this gene is functioning, means which protein this gene is going to code for. So they want to determine, identify and determine functions of all the genes present in the human genome. Now another thing was they want to identify those genes which were causing genetic disorders. So the third goal was to identify the genes which were responsible for genetic disorders. This was the third goal. Now fourth one was they want to arrange all this information of DNA sequencing in the databases, because manually it was very difficult to store and interpret the information. So all the information was stored in, they want to store in databases. They also want to improvise. They need improvement in the tools that are involved in data analysis, because data analysis means we can easily compare the DNA sequences of two or more than two organisms. So they want to improve tools of data analysis. Another goal of Human Genome Project was they just don't want to keep this data for themselves only. The scientists were not interested to have a privatization on this data, but they want to spread this data in various sectors like industries, so that this data can be used for human welfare. So it can be spreaded in various sectors. This data should be provided to various sectors. For example, industries, so that it can be easily used for human welfare. Another thing was they want to identify or they want to know all the ethical, legal and social issues that were related to the human genome sequencing. So they want to identify the ethical, legal and social issues. So these were the goals of Human Genome Project which they set earlier, and they started the process of sequencing. Now for the process of sequencing, they used two approaches. So two approaches were used. For sequencing process, what these approaches were, the first approach was, we know that human, or you can say human DNA is having both coding as well as non-coding sequences. Coding sequence means it is going to code for a protein, or you can say some RNA also, and non-coding means we are not getting anything from those sequences. So the first approach of Human Genome Project was that to sequence only that part of the DNA that is having the coding sequences. That means that is going to translate and form proteins, or you can say it is going to be transcribed into RNA. So sequence only that part. So that was the first approach, in which only that part of the DNA was sequenced that was only going to form the RNA, and this approach is known as expressed. It is known as expressed because it is going to express to form a RNA. Express sequence tag, EST. This is was only for the coding region that will be transcribed to form the RNA. Now the second approach was to sequence both the coding region also as well as the non-coding region also. That means the complete human genome was sequenced, whether it was containing the coding region or it was containing the non-coding region. So that was sequence annotation. Means here sequencing was done of both coding and non-coding region, and the second approach was used for the, mainly the second approach was used for the Human Genome Project. Now how the process of sequencing was done? In the first step, the DNA was isolated. There was isolation of DNA, isolation of human DNA. This isolated DNA was break down into random fragments. So random fragmentation of DNA was done. This random fragmentation of DNA was done with the help of endonucleases. These random fragments were then cloned. They are cloned in specific hosts like bacteria and yeast. So there was cloning of these fragments into bacteria and yeast. These were the two organisms that were used for the process of cloning. Now for the process of cloning, vectors are required. So here scientists used two vectors that were BAC and YAC. Bacterial artificial chromosome and yeast artificial chromosome. These were two vectors that are having a capacity to carry a large segment of DNA. So first the fragment of DNA were joined with these vectors and these vectors were introduced into these hosts. Now these hosts, they were responsible for the amplification of DNA, because they are going to multiply, then this fragment of DNA are also going to multiply. So this lead to amplification of DNA. And now this amplified DNA was used for the process of sequencing, and sequencing was done by the method of automated sequencing. And this method of sequencing was given by a scientist, that is Frederick Sanger. There was a scientist named Frederick Sanger and he gave a method of automated sequencing, and this amplified DNA was sequenced by using this method. Now these amplified DNA segments, they were arranged so that the overlapping regions, because the DNA was randomly fragmented, so many fragments are going to carry the overlapping regions. It simply means that a region is present in more than one segment of DNA, more than one fragment of DNA, and these were arranged in such a manner that the overlapping regions are arranged themselves. The overlapping regions are going to arrange themselves, and this process, because lots of DNA sequences, lots of DNA fragments were there, so this process was not manually handled, so there were special computerized programs that were used, and by using that computerized programs, the arrangement, or you can say the proper sequencing of these fragments were done. And almost all the sequencing process was done in 2003, but there was one chromosome left, that was chromosome number 1. The first chromosome was left, and the sequencing of this first chromosome completed in May 2006. So the human genome project completed in 2006, because one chromosome was left, but most of the sequencing was done in 2003. So this is how the process of DNA or human genome project was sequenced. Now what were the end results? What were the salient features of this human genome project? Let's talk about the salient features. I already said that there were some of the assumptions which scientists made. Now at some point they were right and at some point they were wrong. So first feature of this human genome project was the number of base pairs, the actual number of base pairs that are present in the human genome. They are 3164.7 million. This is the actual number of human genome or bases that are present in the human genome, and estimation was it was 3 billion. So this is the actual number. Now the second thing which scientists find out that almost all the genes are carrying on an average about 3000 base pairs. So the average number of base pairs in genes is almost 3000, but there is a gene that is the longest one and it is containing almost 2.4 million base pairs, that is dystrophin. It is having 2.4 million base pairs, that is present in this gene that is going to code for a protein, that is dystrophin. Another thing about this Human Genome Project is the total number of genes that are present in human genome is 30,000. Number of genes are 30,000, and estimation was, the scientists were thinking that human genome is containing 80,000 to almost 1,40,000 genes. This was the number they were thinking, but actually the number of genes are present almost between 25,000 to 30,000 genes. Now the genes which the scientists identified in Human Genome Project, there are 50% of the genes whose functions are not known. So 50% genes are there whose function is not known. So we are knowing about only 50%, the function of 50% of the genes, and rest of the 50% of the genes we do not know the function what they are performing. Out of the total DNA, in humans only 2% of the DNA is coding for proteins. So only 2% is the coding region. Rest is all junk, that is not coding for anything. Another feature of this Human Genome Project is that it is containing repetitive sequences. Most of the DNA is having repetitive sequence. A sequence is there that is going to repeat it multiple times. It can be from 100 to 1000 times, and in each individual the number of repetitions are different. So most of the DNA is having repetitive sequences that are going to repeat for 100 or 1000 of times. There is one chromosome that is containing maximum number of genes, and there is one chromosome that is containing minimum number of genes. So chromosome number 1 is having maximum number of genes, that is 2968 genes are present on chromosome number 1, and chromosome Y is having least number of genes, that is 231. So this is having maximum number of genes and it is having very small number of genes. Now another thing they told about human genome is that almost 1.4 million locations were there which were carrying SNRNPs. They were having single nucleotide polymorphism. So they were having SNPs. 1.4 million locations were there. At that point there was change in only one single nucleotide. SNP means that single nucleotide is going to be different in different individuals. So these were locations were there that were different. Another salient feature was that almost 99.9% DNA is same in all the individuals. There is only difference in 0.1% of DNA, and this 0.1% of DNA is leading to variation. Otherwise 99.9% of the DNA is same. So these were some of the salient features of Human Genome Project. Now let's talk about the application, how it is useful. Application of Human Genome Project. The first advantage of Human Genome Project is it is giving us all the information about the human genome. So we are getting all information about human genome. The another application is it is helping us to identify those genes which are responsible for genetic disorders. So identification of genes causing genetic disorders. It is also helping us to prevent the inheritance of these genetic disorders. So by using the information, we can prevent the inheritance of genetic disorders. This Human Genome Project is also helping us to know about the ancestry, because some of the non-coding region is there. This non-coding region is not doing anything, but it is providing us the information, the repetitive sequence. The non-coding region is going to tell us about the ancestry. So here also it is going to tell about the ancestral characters. So these are the applications of Human Genome Project. That is all about Human Genome Project. Next time we are going to talk about DNA fingerprinting, and in this DNA fingerprinting we are going to talk about the repetitive sequences, because I already told you that repetitive sequences are present in all the individuals and the number of repetitions are going to be different in each individual. So these repetitive sequences are used for the process of DNA fingerprinting.